Survival Vacancy has you creating an underground base to rescue the last survivors of a nuclear wasteland. A lot of automation comes into play to reduce the work time that goes into creating a healthy environment for the last stand of humankind. Welcome to Indie Game Guides, and today I present to you the complete guide for Survival Vacancy. First thing you need to do when you start your game is to clear sufficient space. Now generally I clear about 10 layers of blocks as wide as the top area, but as you're doing this you will not only reveal all the mining nodes in the top layers, but you will also be gathering some great starting capital of the 3 collectible resources being copper, iron and algae. Open your backpack by pressing tab, place down your manual maker by right clicking on it and clicking once again in the new open space you just cleared. Now with this machine you can create some basic items with materials in your backpack. Now you pretty much never want this thing not doing anything. But what does it need to be creating? Well, we will be going over that as we start off with the very first step, and that is mining. First off, look for some clusters of mining nodes of copper and iron. The more together, the better, especially both kinds relatively close to together. Now these nodes are actually the most annoying part of the game because they aren't infinite. When you hover over them, it'll tell you how many resources it'll give you, but once they run out, the node is gone and you need to move your entire mining operation to the next group of nodes. So it's very important to keep this in mind when you're building your smelting and assembly operations. But anyway, you just found a decent group of nodes, which create about 6 excavators to start off and distribute them equally over the 2 copper and iron nodes. We're not gonna bother with algae just yet. We need basically equal amounts of both resources, but now we have 2 problems. The excavators will only collect until their inventory is full, and they will only work while you're standing next to them. We'll solve the emptying of their inventory first. Have your manual maker create a bunch of rails, carriers and coffers. Now I will already tell you, you will be wanting to create a lot of these 3 items the further we go. Now place down a rail that reaches every excavator. You can create a closed loop with the rails by holding down the left mouse button, and afterwards just place a carrier on top of the rails and you'll see it start moving. Now this will basically handle the transport of all materials and components. Now we just need to give it a place to transport the mined resources in. And for that reason, place a coffer somewhere along the rails, because now we just need to double click on both the excavators and the coffer to assign the in and out ports of each. Now when double clicking on any machine, coffer or whatever, it will show you where the carrier can pass by and take or give materials. We're going to give each excavator an exit port and the coffer an entrance port wherever the rail passes. Now that way the excavators aren't overstocked and we can find all the new resources in one easy to reach place. There's a small side note I do want to share. The shorter the track, the quicker the goods will be delivered. This makes kind of sense, but if you are making longer rails, it might be a good idea to add more additional carriers to bridge the gap of time between the resources. Before we go solving the apocalypse any further, I want to quickly mention that you can always hit me up on Twitter or join our Discord, and you can chat with me and other indie game enthusiasts on our Discord. And if you want to have a vote on which indie game gets featured next, be sure to subscribe, because we often organize open questions and do polls to decide which game gets a series of guides next. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about how we will power this operation. Next up, we're going to be talking about how we want to power everything without standing next to it. Now, first off, we're going to build a few wind battery generators and place them above ground. Now, there's a quick side note. The above ground world has kind of 2 walls to the sides. Now, if you place your windmill close to the walls, they will generate batteries less quickly. So just be sure to place your windmills kind of in the center of the top ground. Now, just as with the excavators and basically every machine you will use, you can use ports to have the machine drop to the ground the batteries onto a rail. So we'll have the rail drop the batteries into another coffer to create a buffer. Now, it's always a good idea to make a buffer between these different operations because if a machine at the start of the line slows down for whatever reason, you'll have a stock to keep the other ones going for a little bit longer. Okay, so the batteries are in the coffer, so we're gonna feed that onto another rail that will feed the batteries into another component that you can craft with your manual maker, being the tiny power station. Now these need to stand on support blocks, by the way, as do most other components. Now from the power stations you can pull these power wires to all machines, including our excavators. Now there's a little tip: you can just hold onto a wire and drag it to the one next to it to have it connect it by taking like this X shape wire. Now, once this is done, your machines can start working on their own without needing you to stand next to them. So now we're getting automatically copper and iron. You should also already have a grasp on how the power lines and the rail system works. We'll have this apocalypse solved in no time. Next, you can start creating smelters and simple builders. Now, I would always work with the same type of system as we used before. So for example, 2 coffers, one for iron and one for copper, each leading through a rail system into the smelter. The smelter drops it onto another rail and places it into a coffer. Now from that coffer, you can have rails bringing it all the newly gotten materials to simple builders which can create all kinds of things like ball bearings, axles, circuit boards, and so on. Now to evenly distribute the iron and copper bars among the builders, for example, you can use coffers as a distribution system. For example, you have one rail who brings the bars from the smelters into a coffer, and that coffer has 2 exits which each his own rail to bring it to the separate builders. And you can use this system to expand the entire automation system a lot more. Okay, so once you finally kind of have set up the automation system to make the most basic components, you should really start making yourself a basic assembler. Now with this thing, we can start crafting the things we need to get some survivors in our base, which are going to be a massive help later on. Now first off, build yourself some turrets. Now the moment that survivors enter your base, monsters will start showing up to attack your base. Now these zombie looking fellows will attack your wind generators to start with, so be sure to build some turrets to get some defenses around your entrance. Now next up, we need a few harvesters. Now these things are basically needed to mine the algae. So just like we did with the mining resources, you're just going to place some harvesters on the algae nodes and power them and have them some rails so to collect all the resources. Now with a rail system, we're also going to feed the collected algae into a food processor which will churn out food, which we simply have to supply automatically through rails into the shelters that we're going to build. Once you've made all these, you can select below in the middle the number of survivors you'd like to visit, preferably the same amount as the amount of shelters you've made. Now once the survivors have graced you with their presence, you can start collecting whichever machine you want and have the survivors increase its efficiency, and you can also start using them to generate research points to unlock more perks in the research tree. Now at this point of the game, you just need to keep expanding the base, optimizing everything, build the advanced builders, unlock all perks in the research tree to progress a little bit further. But as I've been playing, I haven't really found a goal next to that yet, but maybe on the official release there will be. So I think I'm going to add the guide here. Is now, if you think I missed something or you just want to share some of your own tips, please share them in the comments down below and you might help some people out. Now, if you have found this guide useful, be sure to give the video a thumbs up so other people can find it too. And if you like this type of guide, now I publish at least 3 of these every week. So be sure to subscribe because I would love to get your input on our open questions and polls in the community page. I want to thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one.